Ashton. Hey, dude. You moved your drums. That's cool. So I guess we should talk about setup first, since you moved your drums and you were sort of showing me what the setup looks like, and I definitely have some comments on that. Of course, setup is a personal preference, but I think at this stage, I could recommend some things that you should try. One thing, like I mentioned before, is just totally changing things around once in a while. If you came to me with videos next week and you had like an entirely different setup going on, it would make me really happy. I'm not saying you have to do that, but like, yeah, I mean, there's just so much you could do, especially if you think about deleting things. Because honestly, the 5-piece with all the cymbals, like, most of the time we don't need all that stuff. We should be able to play all that stuff, and we should feel comfortable with a drum set that has all that stuff. And of course, drum sets do get bigger than that, for sure. But, you know, when it comes to creating music, the best drummers out there can do it with virtually nothing. And I think it's good to pare things down and get used to that once in a while. But anyways, I'll leave that up to you. As far as what you have set up right now, so one thing is, I noticed since you moved the kit, you got it facing the wall, right? And it seems like the bass drum is sort of parallel to the wall. Seems like, I might be wrong, but it seems like it's pretty close to parallel to the wall. So now that's sort of messed up your balance that we worked on a few weeks ago, where we have the duck feet thing going on, a little bit of an angle out like that in our feet. So the hi-hat comes forward a little bit. The kick drum has an angle, a little bit of an angle to it instead of facing straight forward. So it seems like we might have lost that since you moved your kit, because it's natural to go, oh, well, we'll put the drums against the wall, and then you just put the kick drum straight against the wall, parallel to it, and then you end up with imbalanced, like, straight bass drum, angled hi-hat that's pulled in, which is just not very good for the body, as we've talked about before. So anyways, I would take a look at that and make sure that you're getting your little duck feet super balanced position thing going on. Also worth mentioning, whenever you put a drum kit, particularly a kick drum, right up against the wall like that, or very close to a wall, it makes the kick drum not sound very good, typically. It takes the resonance, the sustain, the low end, it takes all that out of it, because you're essentially not using the front head anymore by putting a wall right up against it or very close to it. It sort of cancels out the vibration of the front head. And that front head on a kick drum gives you a lot of your tone. It gives you the low end. It gives you some sustain. Even with a drum like yours, where you got a lot of muffling on the inside and it's a very dry, dead, punchy kind of sound, there's still low end and there's still some tone in there that we'd like to hear. Now, of course, for just practicing at home on the drums, it really doesn't matter that much, right? Because, you know, whatever, we're just practicing. But, like, you know, I want my drums to sound good, you know, even if I'm just practicing. So, anyways, if you angle your drum a little bit like you're going to do anyways, that'll help improve your tone a little bit, because it'll give you a little bit of space between the kick drum and the wall. And if there's room in your room to bring the drums back, even just a little bit, it'll help improve the tone there. Even just like a couple inches will make a difference. You don't have to come way back, but just a little bit further off the wall will help improve the sound of your kick drum. And actually the toms will help, it'll help the tom sound a little bit too, because they're sort of angled towards the wall. Anyways, so that's that. As far as cymbal placement, yeah, I don't know, it's weird. I would be frustrated playing your drum set. You're sort of, in a way, you're sort of prioritizing those two crash cymbals over your ride cymbal, which in most music, crash cymbals will come secondary to the ride cymbal. Hi-hat and ride cymbal are the most important thing. So I like to put my ride cymbal where it's comfortable for me, and that might be a comfortable place for you. It's certainly a valid position. Like I said, a lot of like rock drummers like their cymbal over there. Jazz drummers basically never like their cymbal over there. If they only have one ride cymbal, a lot of jazz drummers play more than one ride cymbal. But if they only have one ride cymbal, it's going here for sure. But I would encourage you to experiment with that a little bit. Prioritize your ride placement over your crash placement. If you just really like it there, but I don't know if you've tried it in that other position that I mentioned to you. So you may decide that you like the other position better. You may decide that you don't like it better and you want to go back to where it was, and that's totally cool. But you should be trying things. Like I said before, like just changing your configuration drastically. You should be trying these things. Like, don't be afraid. As well as tuning, like I've talked about before, and I haven't heard you change your tuning at all. So these are important things. As much as you practice all the stuff that I give you to work on, you know, you should be messing around with your configuration, and you should be messing around with your tuning. Because in the real world, like if you're out doing gigs or playing a bunch of music with different situations, like you're going to be changing those two things all the time. So you might as well get used to changing it now and figure out how to do it and what you like and what you don't like, and how different things sound when you change your tuning, how different it feels to play a double shuffle when you have no tom-toms and only one cymbal. Like, what's that like? Right? So, anyways, that secondary ride position, here's another ride. So if you're leaving your middle tom here-ish, then that your ride would kind of come up higher and have a little bit more of an angle to it. It would be sort of here-ish. So it's up fairly high, especially because your toms are fairly high. And it would be hanging over your tom-tom a little bit, right? So it doesn't need to be way out here all the way to the other side of the tom, because we don't want to have to reach that far. It should overhang your tom, be as low as possible. If it bumps into the tom once in a while, that's okay as far as I'm concerned, because most of the time it won't. And then it's as low as I can get it and as close as I can get it. And then getting the angle just where it makes sense the most, that's a bit of a trick too. But basically it would be in that kind of position. And then I'd throw another crash, one of your other crashes up to the right, just slightly above the ride cymbal. I would overlap them probably a little bit. If my crash bumps into my ride once in a while, totally fine, because I don't want that thing to be too high. I want it to be as low as possible. And then if I was playing another crash, like in your case, I'd put it right in the middle, right between the two toms. Again, kind of close-ish, whatever makes sense there. Your crash on the left side is sort of in a weird position right now. You have it, that stand needs to stay where it is, but I'll just pull the cymbal off. So your crash right now is sort of like over here and angled like that, which is kind of weird. Some of it, like your hi-hat's pulled back because your feet are out of balance. So there's actually room to put the crash over there. For me, it would bump into my hi-hat. But it's a little bit it's a little bit like far away and angled not towards where your stick is coming from, because like you don't play it like this, right? You're coming at it from this, so your angle should always reflect where the stick is gonna actually hit it, like, right? So like this kind of angle makes sense for where the stick is approaching the cymbal, but your cymbal is angled like that. So when I hit the cymbal, the stick bounces off to the side. It's weird. So I would bring it closer to your small rack tom, and again, for me, I even overlap the tom a bit. It makes sense to have everything as close and as tight as possible without feeling cramped, but it helps us be efficient in our playing, right? If we have to reach for things and if we have to move big distances and use a lot of arm motion, right? It's just like wasted energy. The only time where that makes sense is if you're just bashing loud, like Dave Grohl style rock drumming, where your sticks are coming up really high anyways, so it doesn't matter. In fact, it might be preferable to have your crash cymbals like way up here in that case. But I'm teaching you how to be a versatile drummer that can do everything. And most of the time, you're not going to find yourself playing in that fashion. And if your drum set is set up all spaced apart and high and far away, you're just going to be fighting yourself. Okay? So, whew, apparently I could talk about this all day as well. Okay, so you get the point? There's a lot of things to mention there. What else did I want to mention about that? That's about it. My only other comment is that your toms are very high and steeply angled. They have a big angle to them, and they're very high. But I looked at it, and that's probably just the reality of the kit that you have. And you're probably used to it, and it probably doesn't even bother you. I think for the kit that you have, the toms are probably about as low as you can get them. Probably the smaller rack tom could come down a little bit, but I bet that middle rack tom is as low as it can go without hitting the bass drum. And you don't want your high rack tom to be lower than your middle rack tom, so you have to sacrifice that. So it's the nature of having a 22-inch kick drum and fairly deep tom-toms mounted on a bass drum. That's just the reality. So why am I pointing this out as being a negative? Because it makes everything else high. So like if you want to put your ride cymbal in that position that I talked about, it's totally doable, but it's going to be pretty high. You know, and it'll take a little getting used to. Your crash cymbals, if you want to overlap your toms to get them closer, it means they got to be a little bit higher than I would typically like. See, that drum set, it's very much like rock flavored. It's a rock kit, and a real rock drummer, they wouldn't care, right? Because everything's up high because their sticks come up so high. But for us players that want to play everything and want to be able to play very low volume and have a lot of nuance and detail in our playing, a drum kit like that is a bit of a sacrifice, but it's totally fine. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, cool. I'm moving on from this because I have a lot of other things to talk about. The double shuffle. I'm going to save that for last because I have a lot of things to talk about with that. So let me talk about something else first that will be a little bit quicker. The jazz brush pattern. So, no. You got the cross right. But you reversed your ride cymbal pattern. So instead of playing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Let me see if I can do what you were doing. You did this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So it could sound the same to you, but it's not because of where you started and where it lines up with your feet. Because I know where your beat is based on what your feet are doing, right? Because you're playing quarters in the kick drum, but I know this is 2 and 4, right? So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You were doing this. Right? So it got flipped. This pattern got flipped. So make sure your pattern's in the right place. And then, yeah, you'll have to get that together. Cool. All right. So that's all I got to say about that. Singles, doubles, paradiddles. So, okay. I think we should probably not be concerned with moving our voicing around right now, because the comfort level on the sticking and the coordination, being able to pull off paradiddles as triplets, like, it's not happening yet. So by moving around to the different voices, it sounded really nice, but I think it's just complicating things for right now. So I would say pick left hand snare drum and put your right hand on floor tom. I'm going to demonstrate on rack tom. You could do it on rack tom, I don't care, but just pick 2 voices for now and make sure you can get your sticking together. Obviously, the stuff on the 8th note level and the stuff on the 16th note level is pretty easy, right? But the triplet stuff is hard, especially the doubles and the paradiddles. So pretty much you need to be spending most of your time working on the triplet versions of doubles and paradiddles and singles. And then a little bit of time on the other ones. Of course, transitioning in and out of those is important too, but I think the first stage is like just getting very comfortable with playing this. And you can hang out there. I would hang out there for a while just to get comfortable. Like, don't switch every 4 bars. Like, just see if you can do that for 20 minutes without messing up, you know? The paradiddles, you were changing your sticking. Somewhere in the middle, you were changing your sticking. The doubles as triplets, I only saw you do it once, and you stumbled at the end, and you forgot where you were. So I could tell that they're not comfortable yet. So spend more time on those particular things. Stay on just 2 voices, and we'll get that together. Okay, that brings us to double shuffles. So... Oh, a lot of talking. So, okay. You did a great job on keeping form, okay? So, and you demonstrated singing the pitch, and your pitch was good. It was good. So, and you mentioned, like, you're not good at, like, if someone asks you to sing a note or a key. You don't know how? Of course not. The only people that can do that are people that have what we call perfect pitch. And it's something that you're born with, or it's something that you develop when you're a very young child. I think it's like the first couple years, maybe the first 4 years of our lives. It's either something we're born with or something that we develop in that very short window when we're super young kids. After that, we can get close to developing it, but as far as I know, scientifically, you can't. So that's what you're talking about, where if someone says, hey, sing the note G sharp, most of us don't have perfect pitch, and if we can't do that. Of course we can't do that. Only people with perfect pitch have the ability to draw up that specific note from their mind and be able to sing it out. So it's not a downfall, like especially if we're drummers, not singers, like it just doesn't matter at all, really. Anyways, it's a whole nother discussion. So no worries there. You sang the form. You were singing your root note, your ones, your 4, and your 5, and the pitch was good. So good. Just try to get it close when you're singing pitch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that was really good. So, and that whole that whole video of you demonstrating the shuffle with the form, it was great. You did not lose form at all. So, I mean, that's awesome. I don't think I was nearly that fast at picking that up, and you picked it up and you nailed it. The playing, okay, so there's some issues in the playing, and this was actually a really good thing that I asked you to do, because I got to see you kind of play how you felt like playing without a metronome to get a realistic image of what's actually going on in your playing. So, first issue, tempo. So, go back and watch the video, but you started at a tempo and then you slowly, over the course of the video, sped up quite a bit. And this is something that I had to deal with myself and still do to some degree. I'm pretty good now, but man, there were a few years in there where my tempo just did not stay in the same place. I could do it with a metronome pretty good, but you take that metronome away and, you know, under pressure performing in front of people, boy, my tempo, tricky. So that's what I saw on you for right now, and it's great that I saw that and that we're going to talk about it now. It's not a negative thing. We all need to work on developing the skill to hold tempo. But basically I wrote down, I got rough tempos. So you started around 117 and at the end you were at 132. That's a big jump. It's way too much. It's not even in the ballpark. If it moved a couple beats per minute or maybe even 5 beats per minute, that's like reasonable, kind of. But what's that? 20 math. 15 beats per minute? Way too much. So, why is that? Well, it's hard to say. I'll throw some things at you to consider, but in the end, it's kind of up to you to figure out why that happened. I think there's a few things I can offer you. Number one, just having the intention to hold the tempo that you start at. And what can help with that, and it seems like maybe this is not helping right now, but it actually does help, is having a form in your head, as you did, and really hearing that first and hearing yourself second. So I think probably right now you were keeping the form in your head, but you were really more paying attention to what you were doing. So that's where your ears were going. So the ears were probably a little bit on the form, but they were mostly towards you. Okay? Now we want to reverse that. We want to put the ears more on the form and less on you. I know it's counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. It seems like it's not the most logical thing, but back when I had tempo issues, a really great drummer who was awesome that I respected a lot told me that you have to listen to yourself while you're playing as if you're like in the back of the audience listening to the entire band. Okay, in your case right now the band is you and the form that you have in your head. That's the band. Okay, so or another example would be, you know, you have a piece of music and you're gonna listen to a song, you press play and you're listening to the song. That's also how you have to listen to yourself. So you're hearing the drummer within the context of the music. In your case, you're hearing yourself within the context of the form that's in your head. Okay, so it's a little hard to explain, and I can't really teach you how to do that. I can only tell you that it is actually a thing, and you're kind of just going to have to work on that and figure it out for yourself. For me, that drummer told that to me, and I never heard it before, and it was like, oh, okay. Well, I could see how that would make sense, and I don't think that I'm doing that right now. So let me try to figure that out. And so what I did was in the practice room, and I was practicing a lot at the time, everything that I practiced, I would sing something in my head. A bass line, a melody, a form, you know, whatever. I always had something in my head, and I was always trying to see if I could focus on that more than myself. And I think it took about a year of doing that like every day. So for you, you're like super fast. It'd probably take you a few weeks. It took me a year, and it was literally like an aha moment. One day, I just figured it out, and I was able to hear myself that way, and then all of a sudden, my groove just got really bomb-proof, super solid, and playing music was just easy and fun from that point. So anyways, that's one thing. Keeping the focus on the music and less on yourself. So, good luck with that adventure. Let me know if you have any questions. What else? Okay, so another big reason why your tempo was moving, why it was speeding up, is because you were changing what you were playing a lot. And of course, that was the exercise, right? Every 12 bars, change what you're doing in the shuffle. But the problem is that I think you're letting that maybe distract you, so that when you change to the next variation of the shuffle, it feels totally different to you in your body, and that makes the tempo move. Okay, so another hard thing to explain. But it's hard if you're changing grooves, because grooves they feel different from one another. So one thing that's important to do is to maintain something consistent in your playing when you're changing grooves. So for me and for a lot of drummers, I rely a lot on the left foot. Okay, And this is a big thing that you were not really doing that you could try to do, and I think it would help you a lot. You started the video by playing pretty gentle, not too committed hi-hat on 2 and 4, right? I don't think you were putting a lot of energy there. For me, it's like massive energy. Like, you can't see on camera, but down in my foot, it's like heel toe. Like you can hear the whole floor shaking when I play the hi-hat, because I'm just so committed with my left foot, because that's my lock, right? That's my foundation. It keeps everything else locked. Now in this groove, the kick drum helps with that too, because we're just playing quarter notes, right? So that can help lock things in as well. For me, the left foot is a little more valid in that situation. So, sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking today, and that's just the way it's going to go, I guess. So, if you had kept a really committed 2 and 4 in your left foot throughout the whole video, you would have had a better chance at holding that original tempo. But you didn't. The first issue is that every time you get to a fill, your left foot kind of drops out, okay? So that's something you got to work on. Now, we have worked on that with our exercisey kind of stuff, and I've seen you do it. You have the ability to hold your left foot and play fills over the top of that. But in this case where, you know, you're kind of allowed to do your thing, that left foot basically dropped out entirely, or dropped out like halfway through the fill, every fill that you played. And so that made all of your fills rush a little bit. And so you come out of a fill that rushes and you get back to a groove that's different than the one you were playing before the fill, and now all of a sudden everything's a little bit faster because the fill sped you up and you got this new groove and you kind of forgot where the tempo was. So first recommendation would be to try it with a really committed left foot and have the coordination to play a fill without your left foot moving. Okay? It's basically a coordination issue. I think you're a little concerned with playing fills that are interesting and a little bit fancy, maybe. And as a result of that, you don't have the coordination to be able to play those fills while keeping your left foot in there. So, play simpler fills. We don't care about complicated fills. A lot of times, complicated fills, they're too distracting in the music anyways. It's better to play something that's simple. Leave a little more space for the other musicians instead of eating it up with fancy drum fills. Eventually you put quarter notes in your left foot, and for me, boy, the difference between playing the same exact shuffle with 2 and 4 versus the same exact shuffle with quarters in my left foot, that feels totally different for me. I would probably never purposefully do that in a piece of music because I'm pretty certain my tempo would move a little bit and the feel of the music would get messed up. It's a different song, basically, at that point. So, pay attention to your left foot, okay? That's a consistent thing that can help you keep tempo. What else? What else? Tempo-wise. Those are probably my best recommendations. Putting the music in your head first, putting you second as far as how you hear what it is that's going on, and then having a consistent thing in your playing to help you stay locked throughout all those transitions with fills and changing grooves. Those are probably the two most important things. And then as far as practicing this, it's also helpful to it's helpful to record yourself. I don't know, it's 2021. It's pretty easy to find a way to record yourself. I used to record myself all the time. Back when I was having tempo issues, oh boy. So back when I was having tempo issues, this is what I would do. I would practice something, just a groove, like the same groove. I'd play it for like 5 minutes with a metronome, okay? Not record it. Just really try to get it comfy, lock it in with the click track, and really try to feel that tempo in my body. And then I would turn the click track off. I would press record on my recorder and play the groove for another entire 5 minutes. I have a stopwatch with no click. And then I would go back and listen back to the recording. I would listen to the entire 5-minute recording, and I would pay attention to whether it sped up or slowed down. And I would use a metronome to help me clock that. Like I would okay, I started at 80, I'd put the metronome on it, and I got off the metronome, I sped up a little bit. And I would also do it without a metronome, just to see if I could hear it. I would get up off my stool and dance around the room and see how it felt when I was dancing to it. Because a lot of times if you dance to something, you can tell whether or not it speeds up or slows down. So it was a really meticulous process, and I did that. That's the way I practiced for probably like 3 years. So I know it's super nerdy and it takes a lot of time, but in the end, it got my tempo together. So I guess the moral of the story there is at least practice with a metronome, and then turn the metronome off and do the same thing you were doing and see if you can hold the tempo without the metronome, right? So, okay. Oh my goodness, I gotta stop talking about this. So, I guess show me another version of that double shuffle exercise for next week. Considering the tempo stuff I just laid out in front of you, and see what you can do. It's not about speed, of course. I don't care if you can play fast. I care that you can play the same tempo for 5 minutes without moving it. And that's what other musicians care about. And that's what, producers care about. That's what recording engineers care about. That's the role, essentially, that's the role of the drums. I've been hired for many gigs. It's almost embarrassing, but I've been hired for many gigs because they just need a drummer to keep time for them, because as a group their time wasn't very good, and they would get off when they play together if there's not a drummer to lock them in. And at the end of the day, that's kind of the main role of drums a lot of times. So if the drums themselves are not doing that, then we have a major issue. Okay, cool. Sorry, I did not play much for you today. I talked a whole lot. I hope that you were able to stay with me while I was rambling and rambling. Awesome. All right, hope things are good. I'll see you next week. Bye.